Uncle Ron's stuff. Let's see, a little more here. Okay, Uncle Ron's stuff. Today's episode is about computer BIOS battery. And you may or may not know, but in most computers there is a button battery, 3.3 volts or whatever it is, that is on the motherboard, or has a connector that goes to the motherboard. And what it does, it keeps the real-time clock, which is always present on computer hardware. There is a crystal on the board, and clock time is kept, and it's real important, especially for internet work, because the real-time clock on your computer has got to match what Google or whatever website you're dealing with, they have a timestamp on their end. It's got to match yours or you don't get connection. Okay, BIOS batteries last for a really long time. They're put in at manufacturer time, and they're really only used when the computer is not plugged into an outlet to keep the real-time clock alive. When it's plugged in, there is circuitry there that is powering the real-time clock and keeping some other things alive. So usually you don't have the trouble with the BIOS battery, but I've had trouble 2 times in the last 40 years. One time was my daughter, who was in college, and the system just would not boot up correctly. And when I went down there, I discovered the battery had gone bad, and replaced it, and had to reset the BIOS to what it should be like, and then she was fine and dandy. Recently I got in a free computer to rehab, so I could send it back out to somebody who doesn't have one. And when I first turned it on, this was a Dell desktop, when I first turned it on, it would come up and run for 2 seconds, 3 seconds. You could see the fans turning, you could see it trying to light up, but then it would shut off. And no matter how many times I tried it, it wouldn't do anything. So I took the covers off, and what could it be? I didn't see any obvious signs of trauma in there. It was clear where the BIOS battery was. I've been told this computer hadn't been used in some time, so well, maybe the BIOS battery. So I did put a new BIOS battery in it, and I'm going to show you that in the next clip. And it did in fact start up after that, and I finally got a monitor attached to it, and it worked fine. And I shut it down, did something else, came back, tried to start it up again, same issue. I just put a new BIOS battery in it. What's going on? In this particular case, I had to pull all the connectors off that went from the power supply to the motherboard, and I reseated them. I only had to do that maybe twice over 40 years, but this is a case where I did. It may not have been, connectors are not plated with real gold, and there's tarnish or air pollution or moisture or whatever you want to call it. Diminishes that contact between that connector from the power supply to the motherboard enough that it impacts the voltages the motherboard is getting. So I did have to reseat it, but it was very definitely a BIOS battery to start with. So if the system will not boot, it's usually a BIOS problem, and I can talk some more about BIOS in another video. It's usually a BIOS problem because the BIOS has gotten scrambled. It's set up for the wrong thing. It's looking at a long hard drive to boot from. It could be any one of multiple different settings that are in the BIOS, and I should probably do a video just on BIOS, and maybe I will after this. Anyway, the settings in that BIOS are kept alive by that battery. I don't know why they never switched over to programmable BIOS so that you set it once and it just stays in there forever. But it is changeable, and it can get corrupted. Lots of reasons for that could happen. You can have a lightning strike nearby and it pulses the voltages on your computer, and the BIOS gets scrambled. Now it won't boot again. And so you have to go into BIOS and sort it out and figure it out. But in other cases, the battery goes bad, which keeps the BIOS alive, and also the real-time clock. So in the next clip, I'm going to show you what I did to replace a button battery in a Dell desktop, and hopefully it'll be some benefit to you. Oh, decided it didn't like me anymore. That's enough of this one. This is Uncle Ron. The stuff today is the 6th of August 2020. Okay, Uncle Ron's stuff, and this is actually going to show you a PC and where a BIOS battery is visible and can be swapped. This is a Dell PC that I got in for refurbish and give away to somebody in need, and it's a pretty decent. It's got quad processor and 16 gigabytes of RAM and a probably very slow but 1 terabyte hard drive in it. But when I initially hooked it up, I had 2 problems with it. First of all, it would not start. You could hit the start button and the fan would kick on for a few seconds, but then it'd turn off. And I tried over and over again, and it wouldn't do anything. And so I took this cover off, the side panel that fits in like that. That's a normal deal. And I thought to myself, well, I looked around in here. I saw no obvious signs of trauma. The front light was coming on for a minute. The fan would run for a second or two and then shut out. So it occurred to me, it's only happened to me twice, but right down there is the BIOS battery. And you go, what is a BIOS battery? Okay. On that board, and on all computer boards and lots of devices, there is what's called a real-time clock. It's just like a watch that you have on your arm that's battery powered. It's built into that board, and it keeps the time and the date. Okay, it's just like a normal watch. It has a battery on it. Now, if the computer is plugged in, it doesn't drain the battery. The real-time clock is fed by the power supply that's in the computer, and you don't have any problems. This has only happened to me twice. One time was my daughter was in college and her computer would not start up or stay up, and I went down and it's like, what's wrong with it? And it was the BIOS battery. So in this particular case, this one, as I told you, you push the start button, the fan would run for a couple seconds, and then it would turn off. So I thought, okay, well, maybe it's the old BIOS problem, battery problem. So I did pull this out. You prise it up. It's sort of compressed in there like with your thumb. You can pop that out. You can get a new one. They're pretty much always the same, which is, I forgot, 2340, or it's marked right on the battery. You can get those pretty much anywhere. They don't cost much. And they last a really long time, quite honestly, because normally the PC is plugged into power, and the power supply keeps what's known as the BIOS alive. Now, the BIOS is the basic input-output system that's built onto this board. And I won't go into the technicals of it, but that part has to come up, and that has basic configuration settings in it about that board. How many hard drives am I going to support? The date and the time. Are there any other special options like turning, it has an internal graphics card. Am I going to use that, or am I going to add one? And here is a slot for a add-on graphics card, and there is one PCIe slot down here. That's it. It only has for a graphics card. There is a connector there. That may be for a PCI graphics card. I don't know. Right. right underneath there, but this is for a large one, this is for small. Not a lot of expansion in this particular unit. But the point being is that the BIOS is a separate little software program. And normally, if everything is running right, you don't see it. It comes up, it goes into the BIOS. It figures out, okay, I have two hard drives. I'm going to boot off of the C drive, for example. All that is set in the BIOS, okay? And you normally don't have to play with it. You don't have to do anything with it. It was set at the manufacturing, and this battery or plugged into power kept the BIOS alive. All right, so I changed the BIOS battery. I tried my power on, and it did in fact come on, and it stayed on. The fan was running, everything was peachy, except I had attached this monitor that I had. It was a donation to my refurbishing efforts, and it's older, and I don't know the max resolution on it. It may be, 600 by 400. Who knows? I can't remember. But anyway, I plugged that into the serial port on the back of this particular computer, which also does support HDMI. There is a HDMI port on this one. It's also interesting to note on this particular Dell, you no longer have the old PS2. You no longer have the old PS2 ports for a PS2 mouse or keyboard. It has to be USB ports. I didn't know when they stopped that. Most computers I see come in still have PS2 and for keyboard and a mouse, but this one doesn't. So no problem. I connected the serial. Anyway, when I fired it up, it did stay on, but I had no video signal. Okay. Well, what's the deal on that? Either I'm having problem with the video on this board, or the video doesn't match somehow. And what I eventually did was disconnect that and wound up connecting this to that. I had another monitor here that would take a full max, like a high definition signal, 19, whatever it is, 2000 by whatever. It would take the max. As soon as I did that, this guy came alive, immediately said, "Oh, BIOS error." When you lose the battery and it's not been powered in, it's been sitting in a closet for I don't know how long, whatever. For whatever reason, you can get in, what I'm trying to highlight is you can get in this problem where you try to power up, it won't come up. You may or may not see something on the screen. You may see BIOS, whatever, set time and date, BIOS error, whatever it might come up. That's all related to that BIOS battery being dead in your computer, and you have to replace it. And then you're going to have to set up the BIOS for your configuration. And by and large, on this particular one, when I got to the BIOS, did come up, initially said, it got stuck at BIOS. So I restarted it, and in this particular case, function key 2, you push it to get the BIOS to come up so you can actually edit it. And then you have to figure out what keys and whether a mouse can run with it. Some BIOSes don't allow a mouse, some do. Anyway, all I really had to do on the BIOS for this one was to set the real-time clock to the current time and the actual date. Now, the real-time clock, believe it or not, if you don't set it absolutely correctly, you'll have a trouble with the internet, because there is a time sink, if you will, between your computer and the internet. And if they're out of sequence, if they are not identical times, you will experience internet problems. It will not, I've forgotten exactly what happens, but you'll be aware of it. So whatever time you set in your BIOS, you can in fact change, as you know, from in Windows down in that lower corner, you can change the date and time right there. But BIOS wants you to have at least the real-time clock set before it even will bring up whatever operating system you have on it. And I don't remember what was on this one. Maybe I think it's Windows 10 was the operating system. And once I set the BIOS and rebooted, it did come up into Windows 10. I had a ton of updates to do, but nonetheless. And that's all I'm trying to explain about is your computer, whether you do not know it or not, has a BIOS battery in it, a battery in it that keeps the configuration of your motherboard set correctly and mainly keeps the real-time clock, just like a wristwatch, current time and date set so this guy can talk to the rest of the world and they're on the same time, if you will. The other issue is computers are not the only device that uses large cells like this. Remote controls often have this round circular type battery in them. I had to replace one recently in a remote control. I'm going to grab it around the corner here and give you a shot of it. This guy is a remote control for a powered insect screen on the porch. And it wasn't acting right. And you're supposed to get a flash anytime right here when you push one of these buttons, and it wasn't doing that. So I opened it up, and on the inside here is where that round sort of cell battery goes into. So lots of devices have these round they're called button batteries in them. And you may have to replace that if you have a problem with a remote. Lots of devices have button batteries in them. That's all I'm saying. In this particular case, that was why my Dell desktop, it came in to be repurposed and sent back out, would not even start up and stay going because the BIOS battery was dead, and the BIOS setup on that board was incorrect. The date and time were off, and it would not even go any farther than that. It would never try to launch Windows 10. So that's enough of this, but it gives you an idea what you might face. This particular one is interesting. It'll support 4 SATA drives, and in fact has a slot open here and a slot open here. That's quite a bit. You can have 4 drives in there, C drive, D drive, E drive. You can have, well, I say 4, you could dump out the DVD up here, but you can put 4 hard drives in here. I don't know, you have to sort of check out the wattage of the power supply, and it'll say some watts. A lot of these things are only 120 watts. This one, in the fine print, I can't even see it right away, but anyway, no, it's too fine a print to see it properly. What is this? No, I don't see it listed. No, it doesn't do it that way. No, there it is, 300 watts. That power supply will do 300 watts, and that's typically good for just drives and whatever. If you start doing heavy graphics, your graphic card can pull more. 300, 400. I usually run 500 watt power supplies in most of my devices because I add on lots of stuff. That's beside the point. What I'm talking about is the battery, the BIOS battery. What a BIOS is built into your board. Everyone has every computer board, motherboard has BIOS built into it, basic input output system, which sets configuration details for the board and number of hard drives it's going to support, whether it uses built-in, it has a built-in Wi-Fi capability, you want to use that or not. You can set various things like that. Do you want to use the sound circuitry that's built into the motherboard or not? You can add your own sound card. People do. There are settings like that in the BIOS that you can click down through and set. You can set various security issues. You can make a password so that you have to even put a password in for the computer, the board to recognize you before it even starts Windows, if you wish to do that. Okay, that's all I really got on this. Once I got the BIOS battery in it, and I wound up getting a monitor which this board wanted in the way of resolution, and that's kind of interesting to me. It did not automatically adapt to the max resolution of my old monitor. I have not experienced that before, but that's what happened. I thought I'd do an experiment maybe in the future where I would set the resolution of the video, the coming out of this guy, to the max resolution of that monitor to see if it worked. That monitor may be bad. I've not used it for anything because I got it in. Anyway, that may be always a possibility. I did not know that could happen. If you have a new PC and it will not match the resolution of the monitor, you may not get any video. The computer is running, but you may not get any video. This is too much, too long. But BIOS battery can die. It will, usually if it's sitting in a closet for a long period of time. But they do have to be replaced. I sort of do them every 5 years. Most people don't even keep their computers that long, but there's one there somewhere. I've always found one. Sometimes they're hidden, especially on laptops. They can be a real devil to get to. Sometimes they're on pigtails with a connector on them. Sometimes they're soldered directly to the board. Makes it very difficult to replace them. That's enough for today. Today is the 16th of June, 2025.